All right, hi everybody. Thanks for joining us on what's a very unusual time for everyone. We just wanted to really kind of the story behind getting everybody together for this was it's a crazy time for everybody. Everyone's thrown out of their routines, thrown out of their loops. We really wanted to give people a chance to get their heads up, take a breath of air, and look around and talk to each other, reach out and have a discussion about how all of this has been impacting you and your business, your teams, what you're seeing with your clients. And I'm sharing my screen here. I'm going to also share this doc with everybody in the comments. This is going to be the agenda that we're going to use. We really frame this as a discussion, and we mean that. We don't have a deck to share. We've got some people on the line here that I'll introduce in a second who are going to be here to give some good contacts and share some good pointers and advice and from their own experiences. We also have a ton of resources that we'll be sharing with you. But really, this is your time. I want you guys to think about this. It's your time to discuss, and so I'm going to walk through how we're going to try that out. Please bear with us because it's the first time that NinjaRMM's us as a team, we've done something like this, a webinar that's much more interactive. So we're using Zoom. I think by this point, everyone's probably familiar with Zoom. Everyone's using Zoom for everything. Looks like we got 95 participants in. So I'm going to go ahead and share this link, and while I'm doing that, I want to introduce some people. So on the line here, we have Tom Watson, and Tom is NinjaRMM's Channel Chief Advisor. He's also CEO at MSP Go. So Tom, wanted to give you a chance to just say hi to everybody.
Great, thanks, Jonathan, and hello to everyone. I'd like to introduce myself real quickly. I'm a former MSP owner, owned an MSP in the East Coast for 15 years, exited 5 years ago successfully, and I'm here to kind of share with you all some of my experience, strength, and hope regarding the situation, to tell you it's not all bad. I've got some stories about the Great Recession, and just to answer your questions as well, and kind of be open forum here for the situation and what we can all do about it. Thank you.
Great, and then we also have AJ. AJ, say a little something about yourself.
Hello, everyone. This is AJ. I'm one of the early ninjas, so I had product management at Ninja, and that sums it up. Okay,
great. So let's dive right into how to participate, because I think this is going to help us get right into the meat of where we want to get going here. So 3 ways to get involved. For those who haven't used Zoom and aren't familiar, just a really quick rundown. You can use the chat function. There's the chat function, but also the Q&A function, and that's going to be important to keep in mind, because in chat here, think of that as like your opportunity to talk amongst yourselves, basically. If you do want us, me, Tom, or AJ, to see anything, make sure that when you're leaving a comment, that down here in the bottom you adjust that to not just all panelists and all attendees, but make it for panelists only. Second way, Q&A. So if there's any questions as we're going through some of these topics, if you have specific questions you want us to address on the air, then leave that in the Q&A, not the chat, because the chat's going to get filled up, and we want to make sure that we see that. And then as all attendees are going to be able to go in, I believe you'll have the opportunity to upvote some questions. You can also answer each other's questions, so feel free to use Q&A liberally. And then lastly, we do actually want to open this up and give people an opportunity when they feel like they have something they want to share. Raise your hand, and we should get a notification there, and we should be able to then open up your mic if you want to. So as we're going through these, if you have a question that you want to elaborate on, or someone else has a question, you've got something good that you want to share, and you're ready to share your mic, please raise your hand, and we'll put you on. So with that in mind, let's go back and let's dive in here. One other point I'll make before we get too far ahead is this is being recorded, so you'll be able to see that afterwards. We'll shoot out an email with not just the recording, but a bunch of timestamps to discussion points. So, okay, we're kind of breaking this down into the impact on a couple of different things. The first we wanted to get kind of focused on was people seem to be divided into two camps. And the first camp is people who are slammed. That's slammed with work from all their work from home requests. There's comments on communities and from our own customers that this is the busiest month that some people have ever had. And that's been good for some people. It's also pushing some people past the breaking point. We've seen tons of discussion around techs that are really kind of struggling with their workloads. So let's focus there first, like this immediate situation. And to get further context on that and to kind of see how everybody in this group is doing, we wanted to launch a couple of polls. So Sammy, she's on our marketing team. Sammy, could you help us out and launch a poll so we can get kind of a sense of the room here?
Yes, absolutely, Jonathan. All right.
So this is 3 questions, right? And the first one is going back to this point I made about this is really, I think this is like, is your time and what you want to get out of this. Is it a general sense of how others are doing? Is it specific examples of what other MSPs are doing to solve specific issues? Do you have a specific question that you're coming to? I know in response to our email invites, we did get a few, and we're going to make sure to answer those. How bad is it? This is a good thing to note. We launched a survey a couple of weeks ago, and at that point, people were saying this was having a significant impact on their business, but they hadn't seen much in terms of losing clients yet. They weren't really feeling a big fire. So it's interesting to see this right now. We got over half of people actually doing fairly okay. That's awesome. That's good to know. We also are seeing about a quarter that clients are starting to downsize or close. And so obviously that's a very stressful situation. And unfortunately, it may be something that you guys who are seeing that, you may have some things to share with others because that may be coming for a bigger portion of us down the line. And what's your biggest challenge right now? Too many tickets. So it seems like it's pretty split. Oh, too much uncertainty, not sure how to prepare. I mean, obviously that's a big one. And Tom, I mean, maybe you want to jump in here and just comment on that one because you as an MSP owner had to deal with this, especially at certain points in your career. But what do you think about this kind of list of the challenges and as your perspective as an owner, how did dealing with like things like that where you're like, okay, too many tickets, I know the levers to pull for that maybe, versus this general sense of like, man, these are uncertain times. I don't know what to do. This is a bigger thing. I like problems I like to be able to act on.
Right, Jonathan. I think the first thing I would say about this number 3, what's your biggest challenge right now? We see 49% saying too much uncertainty, not how to prepare. I would just ask if some of those people could post some questions for us too, specific to what they're not sure about or what they're encountering. I can tell you this, I was about, the last recession, I was about 8 years into my MSP, and we run across a lot of things we weren't used to. It was mainly financial. But the thing is that on the preparing now and not enough work, clients closing, canceling contracts, I would just tell you, I would move slowly on clients when they want to make these rash decisions like this and try to slow down how fast people are moving because there's a lot of emotion going on in these decisions. And then with too many tickets, I would say at this time, one of the most important things you can do is identify who are those clients who are going to be around, who are going to stick around, showed you they're going to pay their bills and are going to stick with you, and prioritize the clients that you know are going to be there for the long run and make sure you're handling those. And so really put in place putting your business first, what's the fairest to you and your techs, and making sure you're taking care of them first and those clients first. And then, like I said, putting the brakes on these quick decisions others are making because they might come around and have a different answer a few weeks from now.
Yeah, I mean, this is helpful too for us guys because we basically, the good news is we're covering all these points here in the agenda with some resources, links to some other discussions, but this helped us prioritize a little bit. So it's interesting to see that in addition to the overall, like, man, these are strange times, how do we react? How do we plan ahead? Working from home is a big one too, and how your team is managing that. So we're definitely going to get to all that stuff. Thanks for submitting that for the poll. All right.
Jonathan, I was noticing how bad is it? I think this speaks to the fact that MSPs are experts in dealing with disaster already, and we're
Yeah.
actually fairly okay right now. This is a great sign. I'm really enjoying seeing this. There's some real hope in seeing something like that. And want to say also, we want people that are experiencing how it's okay right now. Please feel free to post in here a question or an observation of what you think you've done with your business that really prepared you for a time like this.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a key win. I mean, seeing in comments and talking to customers, I mean, it really is pretty striking how, depending on a lot of variables, depending on your own operations as an MSP, but also depending on the verticals you're addressing, the types of clients you have, how bad this is, and versus how prepared people are. Some people are totally swamped. Some people already had everybody set up for remote, and they're kind of like, it's kind of a weird calm before the storm type of feeling. Hey, Tom, are you able to open up the Q&A?
Absolutely, I got it open.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious. So I think with sharing my screen here, I'm not able to actually do that. So as I'm sharing my screen, and maybe Sammy, I can hand that off to you at some point. I see that we do have some questions coming in.
Yeah, we've got one right here that actually is forefront of my mind. We've got Alex Margovsky, how to handle managed service contracts, clients requesting deferment, discount, free months, pause on services, especially for businesses where work from home is not an option. And, I ran across this, and just to say, I went through the Great Recession, and I had clients not paying, wanting changes to contracts, all sorts of things like this. And my big thing is that once you sign a contract, like you said, making a rash decision or too early in the situation, we've been locked in for a week. I'd be very transparent with your clients, try to be a Governor Cuomo about it in terms of where you are with your business, what you need to continue operations, but then explain to them, listen, no, I can't just let you out of a contract. This is a contract that's in place. We can talk about discounts, and any changes we make now, we're going to have to sign an addendum to the contract, and that will state that you have a lower rate for now or a discount, but it returns to this price at this point. I would not do anything with a client unless I had that in writing, considering the circumstances, and also that ability that once you make a change, you want to make sure you can roll that change back when the time is right or the economy has come back. That's my big thing, is that I'd be very wary of clients maybe not trying overtly to get something over on you, but 6 months from now, feeling that since they got a discount or a lower rate during this time, that they can keep that. So I would put that into a contract, make them sign off on it, and be like, yes, you know what? We can defer payment or I remember I took 50% payments for several months from clients until they got back on their feet. Or if I had clients that were committed to a 20 user contract and they immediately went down to 10, I would allow them to go down to 10, bill them for the 10 user per month with the understanding and an addendum to the contract that it would go up to 20, paying for a 20, whether or not they were at it within a certain period of time. But as I said, my big thing is, especially considering the emotion involved, I'm not just going to let people push me around or make it a rash decision. I'm going to make sure it's backed up with paper and a signature.
Yeah, just curious with anybody else, like if you, others who have seen this, anybody else have some solutions or things they're doing to address that, clients asking for discounts? And maybe that's something that's happened in the past too. I'm sure it's not something that's just strictly isolated to this.
Yeah, I would just say, as I mentioned, Jonathan, I think that what my real point would be, discounts are fine. I would base the discount on a number, and watch out with just giving clients an amount off or just 50% off or whatever like that is, and base it on the actual numbers of people they have working. Of course, that's what's great about MSPs now and all the tools. You can tell how many of those licenses of everything they're still using, and base it on the numbers, and then contract that it will go back into place at full amount at a certain point. But ultimately, as we all know, and with contracts, the way I always viewed them is, if people aren't happy, if it's not a good contract, you're going to let them out of it, but let's make sure it's for the right reasons.
So one other thing, kind of shifting gears back a little bit, I know we got more questions coming in, but I'm just kind of curious, going back to this, the people who are dealing with, because we saw people are struggling with the workloads, any kind of like triage shifts, how are people who aren't having a problem with that are managing a ton of incoming tickets related to work from home? Like, what's the secret there? Is it all about the preparation? Are there anything else that's been working out for you guys? I shared a link here, and I think Sammy did post a link in the chat to this doc, and so you should be able to dive in, follow all these links. I did post a link here to a blog with some pretty good tips about managing and triaging a high ticket backlog. And Tom, I don't know if you have anything to say about that too.
Yeah, high ticket backlog. Absolutely. And like I said, my big thing is, I think we all out there, as former MSP owner, I remember I had a lot of contracts I wish I didn't have. And I would almost look at this as an opportunity too, like I said, to prioritize the clients who are paying, prioritize the clients who have strong businesses that you have a good relationship with, and put them out front, because probably that's going to benefit their business as well, strengthen that relationship. And it might be the time, especially with the contracts that aren't that great, to consider, putting them on the back burner a little bit, because especially I'm considering too, all of this factors in either at this point or going forward during this situation. We're probably going to have problems with our own resources in terms of technicians, people out, people sick, whatever it is. And so looking at it in terms of that, because we're probably, for most of us in most of the states we're in, we're not nearly at the situation where this is going to start to heavily impact our businesses. So my big role here would be to prioritize more than anything else and figure out, who am I going to put up front? Who am I not going to? Who am I going to give discounts to? And who am I going to? Also, I would be very wary as clients push for all these remote access tools and what you're doing, to make sure you're charging for those licenses. Make sure you don't have technicians that are just adding a license, but it's not recorded in a ticket, and make sure those bills go out for those things. So I can tell you kind of a little story here of something I learned too. When we got to the Great Recession, I didn't have even 50% of my clients under managed service agreements. It was about 30%. And I realized the problem with this was cash flow, and also that I was sending out invoices and waiting for people to pay me. And you can look at this as an opportunity, maybe not now, but start identifying those clients who would be good for managed service contracts down the road. Or maybe there's ones that have moved to an entire remote model that are doing very well, and address them from the perspective of, hey, listen, things are going on, but you're using more of our services now, and maybe we need to talk about your contract, because either you don't have one, or it doesn't properly cover your needs right now, or your demands on my company and the resources. So we need to talk about what we can do to get that under a contract, because as I like to talk about, cash flow is king, not just cash. And being able to have that cash in the beginning of the month, and having those clients pay, and controlling how you're paid through ACH, that's going to be the key to your business's longevity either way. But look at those opportunities with those clients than ever before. It's an opportunity.
And then let's move on to one quick tip that I thought was really interesting. So people are starting to discuss bringing on other contract techs, right? And so if you are in a situation where you're absolutely getting slammed and all your techs are kind of getting at breaking points, there is an interesting, like going back to that dichotomy, that there are some people out there who are experiencing the exact opposite, and they are looking for work. And so I've seen some threads. I've linked to a couple things here where people are talking about, hey, we should all set up a network where we can connect MSPs with if anyone who's looking for contract work can pick someone up. I know that there's other official services that provide things like that too. But I'm just kind of curious what people are doing in that regard, if that's something that's coming up on the radar. And maybe that's even something that we could accomplish here too. If there's people in the chat, if you're actively looking for service or additional support techs, or if you're actively looking for some more work.
Jonathan, that's a great point. I would wonder if some people out there, maybe people can reply, are using more like knock services right now. And
Right.
as kind of an adjunct to that also, you know, as we move towards this and things become more remote, I'm very curious what people out there are doing when it comes to having to, you know, roll a truck, do an on-site. What's happening there? Are we going to people? Are people going to people's homes to get some of this remote access set up and do other things? I mean, what's going on with that? Because that brings up a whole nother issue. But yeah, absolutely. This is kind of a resource question in general. How are you dealing with the fact that there might be, you know, you might have less resources at some point, or you might need more to accomplish this? Where are you getting them? And if there's anyone in particular who wants to jump on and talk with us about this, we're more than happy to open up the mic to you.
Yeah, I'm seeing something to, so we switched screens. So I'm seeing the Q&A now too. I'm seeing chat. And I just shared, Sammy, I slacked over to you. We actually, as I mentioned, we ran a survey a while ago, and one of the questions we asked was, what are people doing with on-sites? I've seen anecdotally that people, it seems like, obviously it depends on where you are in the country and what your regulations are, and that brings up a whole other thing that we can talk about in a second. But I have seen a lot of people are just shutting that down altogether.
Yeah, 100% all remote in New York City now. No one on site, I see it says here.
Right.
Also says
yeah,
we only migrated to Ninja in the last 2 months, and thankfully that has helped with remote workers. Good to hear.
That's good to hear for sure. Yeah, I mean, this is the question, and this is again, like, things are changing so rapidly. It's a good context to have it. This was about 2 weeks ago that we asked. But even then, there was already a good chunk, 13% of people were canceling all on-site work. And then a bigger chunk has scaled it back to just emergencies, trying to do things like only after hours when clients are out of their office. Of course, by this point, in a lot of parts of the country, clients aren't in their offices anymore. But I've seen chat where, you know, some technicians are not happy about having to go on site, feeling like they're putting themselves at risk. And so I don't know if that's something that people are dealing with too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be a risk. And I would be, if I'm an MSP right now, I'd be very hesitant to send any of my technicians into someone's home or any other situation like that. Jonathan, I saw one here that's really at the top of my mind as well. I've got Ken Goldberg has how best to handle vendor contracts on behalf of customers who are having severe issues with business. And absolutely. I mean, I think this is going to be a big issue right here, is that, you know, you've got clients that are scaling back, clients that maybe have decided to close their doors. I imagine if you've got retail clients, that could be pretty bad, especially non-essential retail businesses. I would just say, you know, my big thing is that like, for example, maybe you have a lot of backup you're paying for that you're not using now, or you're scaling back on that. My big thing is that, you know, hopefully you're working with companies that are transparent about their own issues, and you can talk to them and get them on the phone, contact your sales rep, contact your account manager at those clients, at those contractors, the vendors, and ask them what they can do for you. Explain. My big thing with any kind of situation like this, and I think my success back during the Great Recession, was that transparency. I mean, I was very open with people about how my business was doing, what my cash flow was like, and what I could pay for. When you give people the numbers, they're often going to work with you, because certainly a vendor out there understands MSPs aren't, for the most part, going to go out of business from this. You're providing critical back-end infrastructure services, and you're not going to go out of business. You might just scale back. So I would say you have the ability to really talk to vendors and get them to work with you, because they know it's in their best interest to help you stay in business and help you keep rolling through this.
Yeah, and to that point, with some help, I do see actually a comment I want to kind of come back to in a second about emergency on-sites and everything. Yeah, actually, I don't know if Alex, finally, if you'd be up for mentioning this a little bit about your situation. But while you're noodling on that, I did want to go back to the doc here, and you'll see under, Actually, let's launch a poll. Sammy, if you don't mind, let's launch the poll about working from home, because this kind of goes right into the on-site thing. You know, what are you doing with your own techs? And of course, this is going to vary a lot from location to location. I mean, just looking at the comments here, I saw we also have we got folks from all over the place, including.
Well, you know, Jonathan, this college morale is really interesting to me, because I do remember, you know, allowing techs to work from home, and ones that I usually were rolling out to clients, and they just loved it. And so I think that's probably a part of this, is that some of these guys kind of had to drive around all day before, and they get to actually be at home. Might be kind of a blessing for them.
Yeah, depending on what your home situation is like. I mean, obviously, we're all doing that, and that was one of the, going back to our challenges. I know that people mentioned that it can be it's just such a different thing. And so, you know, as a manager, I know, Tom, when you and I were talking about putting this together, you had some thoughts about this. All of a sudden, your techs working from home. Some techs you're going to be like, yep, no problem, they got it. Others you may be a little bit more wary about. And then there's that's on top of all the usual distractions. I mean, as you can see, I'm here. I'm waiting for my kids to pull the classic thing and run out here and all that. But everyone's kind of making do. But I know, Tom, you had specific thoughts about managing certain techs.
Yeah, you know, Jonathan, I had this thing where I definitely had some techs that if they weren't, you know, in a car, going to a client, or back at the office, I had a kind of a hard time, you know, watching over them, managing them. And then I actually fixed this through something I came up with called true billable hours. And at the point I did this, we were actually at pretty much full managed services. Everyone was under contract, pretty much all you can eat contracts. But what I came up with is I had a few techs that would get sick a lot and that kind of thing. And I came up with this concept that if you could get a certain number of billable hours in a day, maybe that's like 6 hours, especially considering if you usually rolled them in a truck. And even though we weren't billing hours, we acted as if they were, because of course we're putting the time entries in the PSA. And if they could get 6 true billable hours in a day, it would be accounted for as if they worked the full day, as long as they could account for it with detailed time entries. And then what I would do on top of that was, if they got those 6 true billable hours and then they went over it, they would start to hit incentive pay. And I had incentive pays going from $750 to $1,500 a month based on what percentage over they were of over, say, billing a true 40 hours in a month as if they were billable, even though they're not. I still always view the employees as billable. By doing this system, I was able to send people home, have them work from home, but still have an ability to kind of monitor what they were doing and how profitable they were for the company, because I could track it back to those time entries that were detailed and show the actual time worked on tickets.
You know, it's interesting. I mean, I think people are probably going to have a lot of thoughts about that. But I'm just looking back at the comments here and in the chat, and a lot of people are like, "Hey, we never had an office. We've been remote from the get-go, so we're ready to go." And then others are saying they love working from home, haven't been more productive. After all this is over, they were starting before all this, Fridays were always remote. Now they may be keeping it going. And that's something that I think is going to extend into clients too, right? I mean, that's what we're all hearing, is that this is maybe a bigger change, that once people have seen, like, you know, this is going to be something people are having to deal with for a while, and then they're going to get used to it. And then are people going to come back? Or maybe they're going to stay remote. It could be a big shift.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one of them, Jonathan, I was looking at a Reddit post the other day, and it was talking about, you know, clients getting a hold of technicians' cell phone numbers and calling them directly or texting them. And then basically you've produced this line of support outside of the typical system and PSA. And how do you deal with that? And that's a really tough one. And I think that gets exacerbated by the current situation. you know, as we all know, we've all got tools like RingCentral and stuff like that, and you should open up the device, you should open up the app and make the calls from there and receive them from there. But inadvertently, it doesn't happen by no one's fault. But my big thing is a lot of communications with the clients in this matter of, and like I said, going back to that transparency, I'd be sending out regular emails probably every day to every 2 days with clients about where you are, your capacity for business, you know, maybe even some, I looked in, I saw one of the chats in here, someone talking about kind of level of reporting that they're telling clients and including that, including notes to clients about, hey, listen, some of you may have cell phone numbers directly of the technicians. We have to tell you, if you contact them directly, that will slow down ticket resolution because that's not in our system and we can't track it. And so if someone else has to work on it or there's an additional problem, it's not in there. So please go through the normal channels and continued reminders to clients about that and what the repercussions are when they go outside those kind of boundaries you've set. Going back again to my main point is just almost over communicate with your clients right now. That's the beauty of all these digital tools. We can do that. We can tell them what's going on. We can give them the numbers of where we are. And we can make sure they're in the loop for what our businesses are doing at this time.
So one thing I wanted to bring up before we kind of move on past the working from home section is I found a really good resource. It's actually from Singh. And if you go, Sammy, if you wouldn't mind clicking on it, it's under the poll, are you working from home, and then resource, it's called Essential Businesses Doc. So they're crowdsourcing this, right? And so this is a question that a lot of people have. I'm not sure if people here have that as well, but we've seen this a lot too. Of course, with all the states, cities and states having their own regulations around who's considered an essential business or not. In other words, who is able to continue operating. And Synchro, this is really a helpful thing. Sammy, there's like tabs down below it. You all have the doc now. You can check this out on your own time. But it's got state by state, people are listing what they found in terms of the state and local guidelines. And it goes for countries too. It's not just in the US. So maybe that's a helpful resource for people.
That's great. Jonathan, you know, I noticed in here, Anthony said, we moved to Jive Communications. All our work desk phones can be plugged into Ethernet anywhere in the world, ring it in the office. You know, that's just, of course, there's systems like that. That's great to put that in place. And that's kind of one of the things I'm looking for people too is how are you using this situation as an opportunity to maybe use tech in a different way, to move clients over to, you know, online file sync and share services, to remote enable that file server to a point where it's synced with the service online and you can get rid of it. I think there's a lot of opportunity here to kind of take care of some of these things that you haven't done as well. And then, you know, move your business forward and your client's tech. And if anyone wants to comment on that, that'd be great too. Yeah, as this guy Anthony also says in here, a soft phone app would suffice, and and also passing that along, tech like that you're using to your clients, setting up them for better remote access in the future.
Yeah, I mean, this goes to the point of like, what's awesome to see is during all this uncertainty, everyone's adapting very quickly. It's great to see morale is up. It's great to see that people are already jumping up on opportunities, and it's awesome that people are sharing what they're doing here. Because that's what we're not like, yeah, we want to talk about challenges, but we want to talk about like how's everyone really making this work.
Yeah, making it work. My big thing is that I would be looking, as I mentioned earlier, I would be looking at clients to start pulling on me harder and using that as a way to have a conversation of, listen, previously using these resources from us with your move to full remote work and work from home, we've had to do a lot of setup. We've given you a lot for free in that setup. You're also using more of our licenses, more technology. And these are generally things that we don't provide unless you're under this level of managed service agreement, because maybe that's a higher level than what they have right now, or maybe they're on kind of a break fix a la carte. Using that as an opportunity to springboard into that discussion of a longer term contract, enhancing the contract they do have, and maybe you don't go for the increased money on it right now, but you make that a part of the contract that does tick into place at some point.
So this is interesting. So this is obviously the first thing is like, how can we leverage people's needs to get more, provide them with more services, obviously to get more money too. But going back to this question you discussed kind of earlier on, where there's clients, for the ones who are in the verticals that are being hit really hard. I mean, if you've got people in hospitality right now, obviously there's not going to be a ton that they can do. I mean, a lot of those places are closing. Hopefully with the stimulus bill, that's going to be helping a lot of people. We've got some more information about that actually coming up too. That's great information that everyone here should look into, and also you can pass along to your clients. I mean, what a great opportunity for you to be a true partner and to give some advice there is to looking into, here's how you guys, here's some resources to help understand what's coming in the stimulus package and how you can take advantage of it. But going back to the point I was going to bring up, you know, we're talking about adding services on the clients, but what about Tom or anyone on the line? Like, rather than risk losing someone, if you've identified some clients who are at risk, are there opportunities to maybe scale back? I've seen this discussed in some groups. Like, are there some non-essential services that you can now peel back from them that are maybe low margin for you anyway, in order to give them a little bit more flexibility there?
You know, Jonathan, I was thinking the same thing. And, you know, I remember I had a number of like small restaurant chains, like high-end restaurants, had like 4 or 5 restaurants in a region, a couple of those. And we all know right now that there's some restaurants that are just doing carry out delivery, but there's also a lot of other retail type locations that are just closing. I think with those clients, I would put a hold on their contract and just say, if you're closed for business, then we are going to put your contract on hold for now, no more billing until this is up. And then billing will commence once you are back in business and up and running, you need our services. If there's something small in the interim, we're going to bill you hourly for that work with the contracts on hold. I would probably do a big concession on those. And then for a client maybe that has like a professional office that they just have, maybe they furloughed a number of people right now, I would, like I mentioned earlier, I would base that all on the numbers. And if they're paying you $150 per user per month, I would just scale it back by the numbers they're actually using right now. But, you know, my big thing always with contracts was like, I can't really hold anyone to what they're not actually using. And it never made me feel good to bill something to someone for something they weren't using. And I think we're all probably going to find with this, what I'm reading in here, with all of this increased work from home and additional tech they might need for that, it might really help a lot of MSPs even to start turning that into a growth strategy.
So I see one question here that's open from Sandra saying, went through 2008, furloughed people, basically all went to 4 days a week, waiting to see what the stimulus package looks like first. So I did want to bring up what we found for the stimulus package. Obviously, this is just passed. You guys have probably, maybe a lot of you have already checked it out. But I did, Sam, if you could scroll down a little bit in the doc, I did provide some links to what I thought was helpful resources. So if we go down to loans and financial aid, first of all, provided something a little bit separately. There's a list here from Forbes. This is this first bullet point under loans and financial aid in the agenda doc. And that's really great. It's got a bunch of a variety of programs that, again, like state by state and local and also federal. This is for the U.S. There are some explanations of different potential for aid that either you could take advantage of or clients could take advantage of, and explains who can apply, who's eligible, and how to apply. And then the other doc, the other bullet point, what's inside the stimulus package. So it kind of breaks down. Yeah, this is pretty great. So it breaks down. It seems to fall into 2 different things. There's going to be the ability to defer your payroll taxes. I think it's 50% to 2021, 50% to 2022. And then there's also the bigger chunk of it is a loan that covers up to, yeah, keep scrolling down, Sammy. There's a loan that covers up to a certain weekly amount per employee, is for businesses who are committed to, you know, this whole thing is designed so you don't have to do layoffs, basically. Yeah, $1,540 per week per employee. And that's something that the details are a little conflicting, but it seems like it's going to be good for up to 6 weeks through June 30th. And other people are reporting too that as long as there's stipulations in there where it may not just be a loan, it may be forgiven. So essentially it's a grant. So that's good news for a lot of people, I think.
You know, Jonathan, one of the ones that comes to mind here, and it might seem obvious, but I can tell you back in the Great Recession, what I did was I went to the bank and they were unwilling to give me kind of a line of credit on the business, but I took out a personal line of credit because I have my personal banking at the same bank. And then occasionally during that period of time, I would just dip into that personal line of credit, move that money over to the business as a loan, and use it to support functions and keep things operating. And that was very helpful too. So my big thing is, like I said, it might seem obvious to many people, but don't be afraid to go to your bank and ask for money. You know, especially if you're moving a good amount of funds through them on a regular basis, they're generally going to be quite open to doing it, and often at the best rates because they're the recipient of your cash flow more than anyone else in terms of an entity outside you. So that's pretty much a go-to. Have that conversation with them. They're incredibly open to it in most cases, and be creative. Like I said, if you can't get a line of credit on the business and based on your receivables, do it on your own personal net worth or income.
Yeah, not to, because the conversation's been so positive so far, I don't want to get too much of a downer about it, but I did, Sam, if you could pull up one more thing for us really quickly along these lines. So this is the link that says survival of the quickest. And maybe you guys have seen this around, this is going around, this is a slide that's taken from kind of an infamous deck from Sequoia, which is a VC firm. This is something they sent around to their portfolio companies back in 2008. And essentially it's a slide that is arguing like, hey, the quicker you are to cut down on expenses, those are the companies that are going to make it. Because then the further you put it off, you're going to find yourself getting into kind of too little too late territory. So that kind of scary slide, but at the same time, got to prepare, right? And so going back to the agenda doc, I mean, I'm curious about if people are, in addition to, you know, scrambling to adjust to all this work from home work, whether people are thinking about what are the things we can do to operate lean ourselves. I know, Tom, you've got a lot of ideas about that too.
You know, the one that comes to mind right off the bat is, and I'm sure there's people out there, I always seem to have a problem managing licenses. And of course, we have all these ways to track them and all these tools, but ultimately techs will, you know, a client downsizes and you take that user out of 2 systems, but you're still paying for their Office 365 or something like that. And my big thing would be to definitely audit that license use, especially on tools like that, on the amount of gigs of backup you're using, whatever it is where you can scale back and you miss it by a few days and all of a sudden you paid for an extra month of it. I would say regular audits, even assigning someone in your company to audit those licenses and what's being used, especially if you have clients that you put their contract on hold or you have whatever you've done. And also looking to these vendors. I've looked at a number of vendor websites, not only in IT, for other things where it looks like if you read into their website, you don't automatically get something due to COVID-19 unless you ask for it. So they have situations where they have a program where you can apply and you can make sure that you will get something back, and don't be afraid to ask. Look on their website, see what they're offering. I think that most companies out there are going to be offering some kind of concession at this time, especially realizing that your clients might be downsizing and wanting to keep you on.
Going back to, I just noticed a great comment from Jason, who's calling in from New Zealand, which is awesome. Thanks, Jason. I know it's early there. but he's saying that he's making use of this time. Well, it's kind of great. Like this goes back to everyone's in a different, we're all in the same boat right now, but different situations based on where we are and kind of the spread of the virus and also the spread of regulations and lockdowns. So he's providing kind of maybe a peek into the future for people who are in areas that aren't completely locked down yet. He's saying in the comments, I mean, everybody can check it out if they scroll back up to about 842. Absolutely massive amount of work for 2 weeks pre-lockdown in New Zealand. And then from there, lockdown, things have settled down quite a bit. Everyone who has to work from home has that capability. We're now settling down for a quiet 4 weeks where we're refocusing on internal work in our business, making better use of the new tooling we've started using, improving documentation processes, basically finding ways to take advantage of the time to come out better on the other side. Tom, I know you did kind of the same thing back in 2008.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Jason has a number of good things in here, several posts. And Jason, I wanted to point out one I really liked in here, where you're talking about not only legacy on-site resources drag their feet on remote options. It might be an opportunity to, move them. You wanted to move something to AWS or some other kind of online backup tool or something where you could sync a server. But also this one in particular, I know I tried to buy some IT related hardware the other day, and everywhere I looked for it, it was going to be a month or longer to get. Really interested in what people are doing that. Are we going back into the closet with the machine that we said we're never going to use again and reformatting and find a way to use that old hardware? Because I can imagine too, with people going home, we might have increased hardware needs and getting together old laptops and stuff like that. Plus being up a really interesting issue for what you're going to do when I think it's very hard to get hardware from anyone right now. If anyone's got anything particular they're doing to work around that, I think that'd be great for everyone to hear.
Yeah, Robert's saying in the chat, they have several clients needed to rent computers and monitors, probably work from home. They were able to recycle systems that properly handled the job. So yeah, finding ways to get old things kicked back out again. I know that is a big challenge. Going back to that survey that we launched previously, we asked people kind of what the highest impact challenge was, and inventory was a big one.
Yeah, that was a good point there too. Rental computer services. That's a wonderful thing to think about right there. Maybe you don't have enough old machines or machines that are at a level where you can use them, but look for companies in your area that are able to rent them and deliver them right to the client. One question. Okay, going back to cutting costs. Sales and marketing, this is something too I've seen a lot of questions around, like in addition to not knowing about the right timing and the tone, you don't want to risk coming across as very tone deaf and coming out aggressively with a sales campaign. It's a little touchy, right? So there's that concern with sales and marketing. But then there's also just when you're talking about cutting costs, for a lot of people, that's the first thing you're going to look at, right? I mean, are you going to be really dumping in money into Google AdWords or a big marketing budget? Kind of the first thing to scrap. Although you got to be careful with that, right? I mean, you don't want to be completely come to a standstill. If you have a nice pipeline, it's just such a tricky balance. I wonder if anyone has any thoughts about that. Tom, you too. Yeah, real quick, just wanted to say thank you to Ollie for a $50 SSD and a clean install of Windows will do wonders for an 8-year-old desktop. Totally usable. Thanks for posting that. It's a great one. And yeah, getting into the sales and marketing, I know Jonathan and I were having talks about this the last couple of days. And it's kind of like, how do you get people's attention during this time? And I would say definitely if I was doing Google AdWords, I might scale it back, or I might put something in there that, some kind of AdWord phrase or something like that people are looking for emergency service, because all MSPs might not be like yours. There might be potential to bring on new clients here who really need someone who has an expertise in remote services or already has, these kind of VoIP tools already in place and can deploy them quickly. I would probably maintain some kind of low level of it that keys into emergency services or remote access or something like that, and look at the opportunity here to maybe get a little growth out of this.
just a note too, we've got about 10 minutes left. Sammy has, we've removed the feature where you can actually unmute yourselves. If you do, I mean, I think the chat's going great. If anyone does want to jump in and actually has some things to say, you can unmute yourselves if you'd like. So I want to make sure that we make the best use of that 10 minutes here. And I think if this is going well, we can also go over a little bit too. One question that we can ask too is like, if this is helpful, we can schedule another one. I know that there's lots of places people can go to for chat like this, but if this is providing you something that's a little bit better, more, I don't know, if this is helpful at all, we're happy to do it again. So definitely let us know with that.
Yeah, I wanted to point out too that posted here that Ingram still has a decent stock of workstations, and also some of these delays we're talking about on hardware end could just be shipping delays as well. But just lots of options in here. I would tell anyone that's wondering about how to use hardware or get around that kind of problem to take a look through this chat. There's some really good answers in here.
Yeah, and when we do share this, we're going to find a way to make sure that the chat's retained, that we can combine all that.
Jonathan, I really liked another part in here of taking this opportunity to do other work. I mean, we all know about that time between Christmas and New Year's where you get in some major project work. And I like that Jeff Nielsen, shout out to him here, check with your dental, ortho, light medical clients. We're doing major rebuilds while they are closed now. So they're doing some work right now. You might have to delay sending them a bill for something like that, but you can get some of this work out of the way that maybe wasn't a possibility normally. So that's a great use of your time right now.
I did think, looking back over here, other things that we wanted to really touch on. Did want to give a chance for people to also share some wins. So, I mean, this has already been coming up naturally in the chat, but how are you guys, like, how's your team been doing? Have you done any, have you had any hero moments that you want to share with people? Are you guys, for the owners out there, I mean, it's great to see the morale is so good, but what are you doing to give your team a pat on the back for getting through all this? And just curious to see if anyone has any good success stories they want to share.
Yeah, Jonathan came up with this in here. Whose team has had a hero moment? If anyone wants to throw it in the chat or jump on and talk with us about it, love to hear a couple of great stories about kind of how you saved the day or something that has been great for your business or another business, or maybe there's something where you've helped the medical community with what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting some good comments here. Helping out the local community too.
We're going to post this as well. You're going to make this. Someone had a question about the recording of this and where that's going to be available.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we try to turn that around as quickly as possible. We'll get it out by tomorrow for sure. Back to everybody here. Jason's saying he doesn't see an unmute option. Maybe we can unmute you. And I think, Sammy, you were saying that Jim was interested in saying something too.
Hi, Jason. How are you?
There we go. How's it going, guys?
All right.
Good.
Yeah, coming down to you from the future here in just pretty sunny New Zealand.
But it's literally the future, right? It's Friday there, right?
It is about 8 a.m. on Friday.
Nice. Nice. So what can we look forward to? What new horrors or new good things?
Jason, what's your hero moment? We'd love to hear it.
Oh, man. Our hero moments were that couple of weeks heading up to the lockdown. So the vast majority of our clients were already set up to work remotely. We primarily use SaaS services and things that are easy for us to manage so that folks can, do whatever they want from wherever. We do have a couple of legacy clients that have just held on to their on-site sort of apps and services. You couldn't pry it out of the cold dead hands. And so this has been that moment that I think will really change their minds in the future. But this is definitely, over the last couple of weeks, was definitely the moment where they wished that they had sort of had those server decommissioning projects that we've been proposing for years. Because we had to go say, cool, we don't have time. Like we cannot actually decommission your server, do that big chunk of work in this time. And so what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to put in some stopgap measures that allow your staff to access these resources from home. Maybe in a less than ideal way. Maybe they're remoting into computers in the office. Maybe we've got some like VPN capabilities or something along those lines. But we're going to have to do what we can in order to make sure that your business can continue operating during this shutdown. And those have been some really tough conversations. And it's been quite intense, but everyone seems to have understood, and hopefully that'll roll into a lot of good work at the end of this. But yep.
You know, Jason, that kind of reminds me, it's almost like if you're having a conversation with an anti-vaccination person these days. Do you want vaccines now? And you're telling us that it's at the point where you're like, yeah, do you want remote access tools now? We've been talking about this for a while.
Yeah, there must be a little bit of it's kind of a cold comfort, right? But I have seen other people coming too, like they're finally coming back and asking for that project we've been recommending for so long.
Now, Jason, my question would be on the billing of that. Are you running into anything on the billing of that, or were they flush and ready to pay for that?
It depends. Depending on the sort of what we were setting up, a lot of them were quite ready to pay because they knew that if they didn't have this capability in place, that they couldn't continue to operate, right? So, because we knew that New Zealand at this time, New Zealand was putting in some work from home restrictions. And then as things progressed, it very, very quickly went to lockdown. And then things just like went absolutely crazy because we had about 48 hours notice before everything was officially locked down. And so these folks knew that they had to have some of this capability. So we were in kind of a balancing act where some of this we were charging for if you know, it involved a lot of work. But one of the commitments we also made to our clients was that we are going to see them through this. And so for some of the things that were easier for us to set up, like we did a lot of end user sharing through Ninja and using the end user tools through Splashtop to give clients remote access to their computers. That's relatively easy for us to set up. We waived all fees to set that up. We said, we know that this is going to be a tough time for you. We want to make sure that you've got the capability to get through this, and that the relationship that we're building is going to be worth more than like what we would collect setting that up for you. So, you know, we're just going to do it for free. All of our revenue is recurring. So, I mean, even during the shutdown, we're still going to be sending them invoices because we're continuing to support them, even if they're working from home and quiet.
Great. Thanks, Jason. If we got a quick second here, Sandra's got an interesting story about adding 150 users in the past couple of weeks here. So I don't know if we can bring her on real quick.
Yeah, hi. How are you?
Hi, Sandra. How are you? Yeah, can you
Great.
tell us how that worked out?
Yeah, thank you for this, by the way. I think this is really helpful, and I think everybody else agrees too. So what we did was we had some reluctant clients that would never go on managed services. So the issue with our client base is that they're architects and engineers, so they can't, you know, doing VPNs is really difficult. So they need something like TeamViewer or Join Me in order to be able to access their work machines and work on their Revit models or CAD models. So we offered free licenses of TeamViewer or Log Me In to anybody that went on managed services. So that turned it around really quick, and we added a lot of clients over the last week.
Wow, that's
nice.
fantastic.
Well done.
That's like a great, that's a great story, and also a great like hero moment too, because you not only boosted your business, but you helped, you know, boost someone else's business with all the remote tools.
Yeah, it's been an interesting week. I think business is going to slow down after this week.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it doesn't, but I mean, I think it's going to happen. But we're now looking for internal projects and other things that we can work on while the clients are out of their offices. So, yeah, it's going to be a challenge. But I think, you know, if we do things like this, at the end of it, we're all going to come out better.
Definitely. I mean, and Tom, you're good. You got a good story to tell with that too. With coming out of 2008 and however many years later, I mean, selling your MSP for a profit after the changes that you made. kind of forged in that fire.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I got tired of waiting 4 to 6 weeks for payment. I want to control the money as it comes in, you know, as the contracts are due, billing before the month starts. So it's great to hear that people are using this opportunity to grow their businesses. Jonathan, I know we're running out of time here.
Yeah, let's keep. I mean, if people want to keep going, we've got some more time. There are a couple of other great things coming in. Kind of going back to Sandra's point about work slowing down. Kind of what's next for people after this initial rush. We got Michael bringing up a good point. Anyone taking the opportunity to enforce market to customers that all of their at-home PCs should have antivirus on them. I mean, or even beyond antivirus. I mean, now we're talking like, okay, people have moved on to home. Like, is this an opportunity to extend into home devices? I mean, I know that carries some risk in it as well and some additional pain. Any thoughts about that, Tom, or anybody else?
I'm sorry, I was talking to Jim right there. He wanted to jump on, I think.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. I mean, there's a few things I wanted to touch on. Hero moment for us was probably getting 90% of all of our clients remotely set up, either VPN or TeamViewer, between really Monday and Tuesday. And what was key there was documentation and procedures. We were able to really lock that. We took the weekend to go over our onboarding process basically for VPN or remote services, make a great document, easy to follow procedure that came in very handy, getting everybody set up.
You know, that's a great point, Jim, is just talking about how onboarding documents and having really set ways of doing things right now and tickets that have, you know, this built into it, and being able to track that kind of stuff and have a consistent way of setting up people for remote, make sure they're all set up the same. Because as you know, the problem we're going to have here is if there is a real connectivity issue, you're not going to be able to just roll a truck. And so having that set procedure is probably saving you from that kind of dilemma.
Yep. And then I just had a few things I wanted to touch on. I really love the idea of us all being able to reach out to each other for those who are being slammed and might need some additional resources. How awesome would it be to be able to reach out to another reliable MSP company who's got some slow time to hop on in, and I'm sure they'd help out where they could. I'm sure there'd be some, you know, some security measures that would be needed to put into place. But I thought that was a fantastic idea.
Well, I mean, maybe we can get that going. Like I say, I know that there's other, you know, NOC solutions and other things that are a little bit more established and official. But I mean, maybe we can start here with a follow-up. We saw what in that other doc that was crowdsourced. We open it up where people can list, and just as simple as a Google sheet. You know, we get it rough and ready, and see if people are listing like, here's where I'm located, I could use some help, or here's where I'm located, I'm looking to do some work. It could be as simple as that, and we started with the people that are here, we extend it to other people that are in Ninja, see what happens. Certainly worth a shot.
You know, Jonathan,
I totally agree.
Yeah, you know, Jonathan, I'm thinking, and Jim, I'm looking at this chat we have here, and you're mentioning things like this and maybe shared resources. I'm seeing things in here like Sophos offering free personal PC and Mac protection. Maybe a lot are aware of that, maybe a lot aren't. We can probably mine this chat for quite a few resources and ideas, and maybe put that together someplace. Maybe put on Reddit some kind of ability to some kind of posting where people can connect and talk about shared resources for techs. I'm sure we can help facilitate that.
Yeah, I mean, if we actually, Sam, if you scroll down to the doc a little bit, I've been collecting some resources at the bottom of this doc too. It's a pretty small list. But what I'm going to do after this is go back in and add everything that you guys are adding, because you got great ones. I'll add it here too, so we can have it here. You guys have the link to this now, and then we can think about putting it in some other places too.
One last thing I wanted to kind of bring up and just get you some opinions on. I know we're tight on time, but so when it comes to prospecting a totally new client, one of the things that we've thought about doing, kind of put out there, is to offer them free help just to get them set up remotely. So they're not even we don't have any contracts with them, but these are, they've been in our pipeline for a little bit, trying to just get them maybe a TeamViewer license, get them set up remotely. So, they can think back in a month and a half, hopefully sooner, that, our company was there to help, to save the day, and we're ready to sign that contract with them right now. How do you guys feel about that?
I know it kind of goes back into, even before all this, there's a lot of differing opinions on doing things like free assessments. And it sounds like it's kind of similar to me with that. Like, you're putting in work for free. Some people will say that sets a kind of a bad initial feeling or baseline, that your work is going to be for free. But I mean, these are extraordinary times. I don't know. What do you guys think, Tom? You got any thoughts?
I mentioned it before. My big thing is have it backed up by paper. I would probably, if I had the resources, my MSP, I would probably be willing to give free setups for remote, a number of free things in terms of service to get them going, with a written agreement for paying for immediately anything that's going to be out of pocket, such as licensing, and then probably agreeing to a certain amount, per month for those users going forward. Maybe it's at a reduced rate to start with, and it doesn't ramp back up for, it's reevaluated in 6 months or something like that. And actually, I want to touch real quick on Matt Mock had a kind of a posting on here that said, how aggressive are you all on late payments? Should be worried about cash flow or worried that everyone has seen a slowdown? Well, yeah, everyone's probably seen a slowdown. My thing would be, first of all, this doesn't say late fees, but I kind of read that into it. First thing I would do is I would wipe away all late fees at this point. I would probably defer payments or take partial payments for things, once again in writing, but I would try to make sure that whenever possible, you still have cash flow coming into your business, that you're receiving something, even if it's a reduced amount. I would only suspend billing to clients that are literally not operating, for like a retail location of a store. Anyone else, I would require some level of payment. Fact is that you're providing critical infrastructure services to run their business. Most will find a way to pay you because they probably can't operate without you. And I would never hold that over anyone's head in terms of a client, but I might point it out that you're providing something critical and you have to get paid at some level, even if it's not full amount for now.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jim.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I mean, anybody else who wants to jump on too, we can hang on for another little bit here. I'm loving seeing the chat, and people connecting, people getting in touch and getting plans to talk to each other offline too. That's awesome. That's exactly what we were hoping would happen from this. I'm just so glad you guys were up for this, that you made time for it, and I'm glad it's been helpful. One other quick idea, so going back to the installing AV, I think it gets at a bigger point that people are addressing here too. Maybe the next phase in all this, the first phase is the initial, like, oh crap, we have to get everybody working from home. The next phase is, well, you got to get that secured. And I mean, of course, you're going through, secure RDP gateways, VPNs, doing all that stuff to make the security that way. But doing things like installing AV, security awareness training, someone else brought up, that could be another way to really emphasize, or to get some more work and emphasize for clients. This was phase one, here's phase two. I also personally, I mean, I keep up with security a lot. I am waiting for the headlines to start showing up where we're going to start seeing more ransomware and more attackers taking advantage of all this very quick, haphazard switchovers to remote work. I've been keeping tabs on exposed RDP. It's going up every day. I think we're going to start seeing those headlines pretty soon.
Yeah, absolutely, Jonathan. I spoke a lot about security in the last couple of years, and I was thinking the same thing. You're now probably even using older hardware in some cases, or you're relying now on a home network where you really don't control that router. So might be an opportunity. Everyone probably thought about to some degree of kind of looking at that hardware at a network level, making sure it's up to date, and taking advantage of these things like free Sophos and that kind of thing on these home machines that you usually don't manage. I wanted to point out too, Robert Patterson had a nice post in here. My approach to free assessment is that it's not of value to you, then it'll be of no value to the prospective client. 1 hour review of current environment, but everything beyond that is billable. I think that's a good point. Give them a little something on the free end to see if it's going to work for you and for them, and then start billing after that. Yeah, and we're doubled down our backup reviews since the work from home wave hit. I'd be probably, as you probably all concerned, now you got people saving a bunch of stuff on their local desktops at home and managing that kind of situation. So I don't know if we have anyone else who wants to jump on here and talk to us and tell us a story or what they're up to or any concerns they have, but we can certainly stay on for a few more minutes.
Yeah, and I want to give AJ some time to shine too, because I did see where there is a comment noting that, TeamViewer had some issues in the past week. And one of the things that maybe everyone's already, all the Ninja customers here, which I think the vast majority are, maybe everyone's already familiar with the options, but we have now baked in some failover options. So in terms of remote access, AJ, do you want to talk about the end user remote access, end user sharing option at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I was missing talking to you guys, so there you go.
You've been so patient. Yeah.
But yeah, the good thing is like Ninja offers you multiple options to do remote control, because we didn't want to corner you into one use case wherein just the way someone mentioned, like TeamViewer went down last week. So we have TeamViewer, we have SplashTop, we have RDP, which is still in a beta mode. So you can get that turned on easily by contacting your account team. It's free, obviously. So once you do that, I could actually show you my screen if that would add more color to the conversation. So
sure.
Let me.
Great. Yeah, let's see it.
Let's do this. So let's drag this one here.
In addition, and while you're getting set up too, additional revenue opportunity. I mean, we have, we were talking with a customer who, through the remote access options, has actually branded it for their own, and actually has it as a separate line item, as a separate service that they're getting monthly recurring revenue from. Now may not be the best time to push it. I mean, people are very desperate to do so, but I'm wondering if there's an option for you. A lot of people have probably already got this set up already, but you could, if you're starting to set this up with new people, build in the expectation that, as Tom has pointed out, that, okay, we're going to do this as a free emergency thing, but it's going to be a additional charge down the line. May not work for some people, may not be appropriate, but maybe an option for people.
Absolutely. So if you do see my screen, I mean, again, this is a branded Ninja portal. So this is what your customers, well, this is your view, first of all. So if you go into an org here, you see a tab called end users. So here is where you will set up end users for, for your customers. So I'll go into just my user for the one I just created for this demo. So everything in Ninja requires two-factor authentication. So that this keeps the Ninja console and everything secure to start with. So you set up that user, and this sends them an invite. And the next step here is the devices that you want to give them to be able to control. So here, if I go to add devices, you can search for the devices. Again, I mean, I've added pretty much everything here, so there's nothing more to search. But yeah, once you've added all the devices here, then I'm going to show you the view that the end user will see. So this is a login being an end user. So there's nothing else that you'll see except for the devices that you've been given access to. And if I hover over a device, in this case, I've provided access via RDP, SplashTop, and TeamViewer. So they just hover over the device and click on the icon. And magically, if my demo doesn't go bust, it will open up TeamViewer, and they will be able to connect to their machine remotely in whatever part of the world it is. So it is, as simple as this. One more aspect, by the way, which we didn't cover, was what do you want them to use? Like, do you want them to use RDP, TeamViewer, or SplashTop? So the options that you provide here are the ones that show up on the endpoints. So there you go.
we got from Oliver, same AJ, please send us the how-to. So we'll definitely follow up with a link there. And actually, Oliver, if you go over to the if you go into the agenda doc, there's a link, a couple of links, a video, and also kind of a general description. I'll make sure to add the documentation link too for the dojo. Thanks for sharing that, AJ.
No problem.
Can I make a couple comments on that, just because we've been using this quite extensively?
Yeah, please.
Cool. We've been using this quite a lot, especially with Splashtop to give access to our remote users. One thing that we were sort of confused about, and the reason why we're using Splashtop rather than TeamViewer a bit, is that we weren't really sure how that licensing would work. Like, I know traditional TeamViewer licensing, you've gotten, you know, a certain amount of channels for however many texts or whatever. All of our TeamViewer licensing is handled by Ninja, though. And so one of our concerns that didn't seem to be addressed in any of the documentation was, if we give all of our clients remote access through TeamViewer and the end user sharing, how does that affect the TeamViewer like access that our techs would have? And so just because of that concern, we shifted all the clients over to use Splashtop instead, because then we knew that there'd be no overlap. But I was just kind of curious about that.
Sure, I'll be happy to chime in here. So our previous version of TeamViewer was using something called the Singh API, which was using a hard-coded license. But with the newer API, which is called the Reach version, which is what you need to switch over to in order to use this end-user sharing feature, via TeamViewer, it does not have a license count or a session count associated. So whenever you try to connect to a device, it basically launches a pre-authenticated and pre-licensed session. So, I mean, basically it's like, it has no caps, it's uncapped.
Cool. But yeah, it's been working really great. Our clients really enjoy it. The ability to set up 2FA via SMS has been really good, because even though we really like stronger 2FA, like a lot of our clients are not set up for that. Like, having authenticator apps would be very confusing for them. And so it's been great. We just put together some guides from that, sent them invites, and they've been able to get going.
Awesome.
Nice, and that maybe that's something too. If other people are interested in guides, we've got a couple of examples from other customers too. We can maybe share that as a resource too. Guys, it's 9:20. One of the things that when we were putting this together, we were a little hesitant about is, we know everyone's super busy. It's a stressful time. We were a little hesitant to fill people's inboxes with invites, ask to take people's time. But really, really encouraging to see that this is worthwhile for you guys. And we are seeing some comments that, it is helpful, that you'd be interested in doing it again. We can send out an invite, and if you're slammed, if it's too much, just let us know. We're happy to back off that way too. But as long as this is helpful, we'll keep doing it for you guys.
Jonathan, we got one more. We got Paul was going to jump in here. Maybe we'll close out after that.
Really quick, just be careful with TeamViewer. You don't want to give up the licenses you currently have to switch over to the TeamViewer, the new way of doing TeamViewer with the new API. That still needs to be handled on the end user, being us. I mean, the support people. We don't want to lose our license, because if we're team viewing to multiple places, we don't have that paid license if we switch over. So we can't switch to multiple endpoints, especially if someone has a free license and they don't have Ninja installed yet.
AJ,
do you have any?
I see. Yeah, because you do need Ninja installed on an endpoint in order to use this, right? So fair enough. Yeah, sure. Yeah, because you have to switch over to the new version of the TeamViewer API, which is required for this this new feature to work. So yep, definitely a gotcha there. Thanks for clarifying, Paul.
Yeah, and thanks for clarifying for everybody here too, Paul.
Right.
Yeah, and all right, guys. So I think this is a pretty good stopping point. But I just wanted to say I appreciate this again. Great that everyone came in here. You guys, provide the chat was great. Tons of good comments. We really appreciate you guys as customers, and also just collaborating so much, being so positive and collaborative. And I'm glad we could put this together. We'll follow up, like I mentioned, with the recording. And I'm going to pull, we saved all the chats, so we're going to pull all the good nuggets, posted in the doc. So we'll make sure that you guys have all this good stuff.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome.
Enjoy your time. And
yeah.
Stay safe.
Thank you to all the attendees, and thanks to AJ, some great technical information there. And, you know, Sammy, just a great end on the back end of this. And Jonathan.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a great host, and really enjoyed this. Hope we can do it again.
Totally.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Take care. Stay safe.
Stay safe and well. Talk to you soon.